Hi, it's Sylvester. First of all, I am very sunburnt. Secondly, I am very close to the camera, and it's because it is 4 in the morning. I'm trying not to be too loud because I don't want to disturb my neighbors, and so I want the microphone on the camera to be able to pick up my voice. And thirdly, I just wanted to be honest with you. This is not going to be a very interesting video. I probably shouldn't say that because I want people to watch my videos. I like when people watch my videos, but I am an honest salesman for better or for worse, and I don't want to get anyone's expectations up too high. I want you to have low expectations for this video. So basically, I could sum up the entire story, quote unquote, if there even is a story to tell here. Basically, I was woken up because I live in an apartment building, and the wall of my bedroom, one of the walls in my bedroom, is on the other side of that wall is the stairwell. And I was woken up because I could hear some people fighting in the stairwell. And when I say fighting, that is sensationalizing. It wasn't even really a fight, it was just like somewhat loud argument. It was like a moderately loud argument. And so I am a very anxious person, and I get really like worked up over things like this. And I'm making this video mostly for me because it helps calm me down to talk about stuff, and like it helps me deal with my stress when I talk about it. And so again, that's what I'm making this video for, is to try to cope with what happened, which again, like nothing really happened. I feel like I'm being very dramatic by even making this video because it was essentially, like, again, not a big deal. And I recognize that it's not a big deal. There were some people arguing and it woke me up, and now I can't go back to sleep because I'm very anxious. And it's hard to even put into words why that makes me anxious. First of all, I should mention that I was curious, or you could say nosy, and I wanted to know what the people were arguing about. So I like went out into the hallway and kind of just like listened a little bit, and it was two people who I'm assuming are unhoused, and they were arguing over who gets to, I guess, sleep in the stairwell, or hang out in the stairwell. They were being like, this is my stairwell, get out of my stairwell, like that. I don't know, that sort of thing. So, I've made a video previously on this channel talking about how it stresses me out when unhoused people sleep in that stairwell, because I have pretty severe. I mean, again, I feel like I'm being dramatic. I feel like I over exaggerate sometimes, but like I do feel like it's severe, even if compared to other people it's not. OCD. And I have multiple types of OCD, but one of those types is cleanliness OCD. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I feel the compulsive need to be cleaning all the time. It's more so that I have this compulsive need to be in a clean environment. And so it stresses me out that I am able to control my apartment, but not the building in which my apartment uh, is. That was a weird way that I feel like that wasn't proper English the way I said that sentence. But I'm able to control how clean my apartment is, and that makes me feel good, obviously, because I like to live in a clean place. But again, I can't control how clean this building is. And there's this section of the stairwell that's on the other side of the wall in my bedroom, that this part of the stairwell goes up to the roof of the building. And for whatever reason, I've noticed first of all, unhoused people love to sleep there and do drugs there and hang out there because there are no cameras in the stairwell. There's cameras in the hallways, but not in the stairwell. And because it's the section of the stairwell that goes up to the roof, and people don't go up to the roof very often, so they feel like they can hang out there in peace and not be disturbed. And this bothers me, and I spoke about this in a previous video about how like it makes me feel like a bad person, the fact that this bothers me, because I know they're unhoused. I know they have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to be. And like, if I was a better person, I'd maybe turn a blind eye to it and just be like, they're in a worse situation than I'm in. I have a roof over my head and they don't, and so I would just let them be in the stairwell in peace. But the problem is they tend to, I mean, it stresses me out for a couple reasons. First of all, there's the noise. I'm a very light sleeper, and once I wake up, it's hard for me to go back to sleep, as you might tell from the fact that I'm making this video at 4 in the morning. And so oftentimes they'll be over there making a bunch of noise. Secondly, they leave a mess. And again, I have cleanliness OCD. I'm having a hard time saying that word today. I have cleanliness OCD. And so it bothers me when they leave a mess in the stairwell, especially if it's food. This building has a history of having pest issues, and so I don't like there to be food in the hallways and in the stairwell. It attracts insects, obviously. And for whatever reason, the cleaner, the guy who cleans this building, he's a very hard worker. He does a great job, but he doesn't clean that part of the stairwell, and I don't know why. But I've noticed that he just doesn't clean there, and so when unhoused people leave a mess, I'll either clean it up myself because I check the stairwell compulsively to see if someone's there, because again, it bothers me when people are there, and then it bothers me to think that there might be a mess on the other side of my wall. Like, it just really gnaws at my brain to think that there might be like food just strewn about on the other side of my bedroom wall. So I'll check that part of the stairwell like once a day, and oftentimes there will be junk, garbage left behind, and the only way I can get that to be cleaned is if I clean it myself, or if I go and take a picture of the mess and then email it to the landlord asking him to please ask the cleaner to clean that, and then the cleaner will clean it. But again, it'll happen next time, and then the cleaner just doesn't clean up there, even though I've asked several times for that area to be cleaned. I'm that guy. I'm a Karen. I know. I'm a Karen. I hate myself. I know. But like, I just need the environment in which I live to be clean. And I don't know how to explain that to anyone who doesn't have cleanliness OCD or the specific, like, I just don't know how to explain it to people and why this stresses me out so much. And the third reason why it stresses me out when people hang out in the stairwell there is because they often do drugs. And like I said, my apartment is right on the other side of the wall, and like the drugs they do are often they smoke whatever it is they're doing: meth, crack, fentanyl, heroin. I don't really know what they're doing, but it's it's airborne. It's smoke. So it's like I'm paranoid that the smoke's gonna go into the hallway and then travel underneath the door of my apartment, and my apartment's gonna be filled with secondhand meth. Like, I know that's a very, if like, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't feel irrational to be scared of that, but I don't think other people, or worried about that, but like it worries me. It bothers me. I just really, really don't like the idea of breathing in secondhand hard drugs. It just really, really freaks me out. I want to be in control of what I put into my body, and that's the sort of stuff I really don't want to put into my body or have put into my body against my will. So it bothers me that they'll hang out there and just essentially hotbox the stairwell with whatever drugs they're doing. And so for those reasons, it bothers me. And so again, I heard people arguing, and then I tried to go back to sleep. Like I was, first of all, I was thinking like, do I call the police? Is this argument going to escalate? Is somebody in danger here? I'm certainly not going to go in and try to separate these people and, solve the argument, because I don't know if one of these people have a weapon, and like I don't know how they're going to react to somebody barging in on them and being like, "All right, break it up, guys." So I was sitting there just being like, "Do I call the police?" And then I was like, am I going to get in trouble if I call the police? Because it feels like it's not serious enough to call the police, and I feel like the police would get mad at me for wasting their time. I have in the past called the police when there is stuff happening in the stairwell, and I have had at least one police officer, maybe more. I don't have a good memory, but I can remember at least one police officer being annoyed with me for calling them for such a small issue. So, yeah, and it didn't seem like it was a violent argument. They weren't like screaming. So, like, I just like tried to go back to sleep. But I just couldn't, because the stress of knowing that there are people in the stairwell probably making a mess, and probably, yeah, like it just like freaks me out. It stresses me out. It stresses me out so much. And if you watched my video, if you saw the video I made previously talking about, like, I'm basically repeating everything I said in a previous video. So once again, this video is not super interesting, and I am not going to edit this video, and I am going to check to see how long I've been recording for, because I can only record for 23 minutes on this camera before it just stops recording and turns off. I mean, it'll stop recording, and then like a minute later it will turn off. And anyways, doesn't matter. You don't care. The point is, there is really no point to this video. But I'm I guess, weird as this sounds, I'm proud of myself for how I've handled this situation, because even though to you listening, this probably sounds really dumb that I'm this stressed out about this situation, you're probably just like rolling your eyes and being like, Sylvester, it's not that big of a deal. And like, I acknowledge that it's not a big deal. I am 100% aware of that. But the thing about mental illnesses is that things can feel like a big deal even if they're not. And so I'm part of this support group, and if I remember, I will put a link in the description down below to a video where I talk about this support group and how you can join, because this support group has really helped me. And we're taught coping strategies in this support group. And so I have used some of those coping strategies tonight to deal with this stress that I am experiencing. So, and again, I'm proud of myself for using the coping techniques that I have learned. And so I'm going to share some of them with you, because maybe it'll help you next time you're getting stressed out over something that's not really that big of a deal. Because there's, in our support group, we call events like this trivialities. We don't deal with major life events in our support group, like big traumatic things, big life changes, like really serious stuff. We don't deal with that in our support group. We deal with, again, what we call trivialities, things that are not that big of a deal, but since we are nervous people, we feel like it's a big deal. And so some of the strategies I've used tonight to cope with this is, people do things that annoy us, not necessarily to annoy us, because sometimes when people do things that upset us, it feels like a personal attack, But I know these people who woke me up, first of all, they're in a worse situation than I'm in. I'm privileged compared to them because they are, I'm assuming, unhoused. So, there's that. But also, they didn't purposefully wake me up to annoy me. They didn't, they didn't do, and like when people leave a mess in the stairwell, they're not doing it to annoy me. Like yesterday, somebody took a shit in the stairwell, and because I have cleanliness OCD, I couldn't just leave it for the cleaner. I had to deal with it right away because it just bothered me knowing that it was there. So I cleaned up someone's poop yesterday, which was, not something I wanted to do. But again, the person who did that didn't do it specifically to upset me, to annoy me. So people do things that annoy us, not to annoy us. There's another thing we say in our support group. It's excuse, don't accuse. And so it's easy for me to accuse these people of, being rude and inconsiderate or what have you. But in order to drop the symptoms I'm experiencing, I have to drop the temper. And to drop the temper, I have to drop the judgment. So instead of judging them, instead of being mad at them, I need to excuse them and the behavior that annoyed me. There's something that we say in our support group that is, these symptoms are distressing but not dangerous, because as anxious people, we tend to feel like we're in danger when something stresses us out. It like, when we're very anxious, you can almost be in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. Your brain is telling you that there's some kind of danger, and oftentimes there is really no danger. And so I have to remember that the situation is distressing, and the symptoms, the anxiety I'm feeling is distressing, but there is no real danger here. Like, my life is not in danger by these people arguing in the stairwell and leaving a mess in the stairwell. That doesn't put my life in danger. It's not a dangerous situation. It's not an emergency. That's another thing we say in our support group, is that these are trivialities, and we tend to treat trivial things as emergencies when they are not. And so again, this is not an emergency. And I am glad I didn't call the police, because the argument was over very, very quickly, and I did check the stairwell, and they didn't leave a mess. It does smell like skunk in the hallway, and like, I don't know if I'm imagining it, but I kind of smell it in my apartment now. So like, I think one of them might have been sprayed by a skunk, but I didn't see a mess. So, and they're not there. Well, I don't know, currently they might be there, but like when I checked, there was no one there. So, again, there's no emergency. This is not an emergency. This is a triviality. And another thing we say in my support group, or our support group, is that I've lost my train of thought. It's not an emergency. It's a triviality. This is average. That's another thing that we say, is like, this is a very average situation. I mean, maybe it's not that average, because again, I am kind of weird with my cleanliness OCD. This is a little strange, but overall, for an anxious person with cleanliness OCD, this is an average situation. Especially for me, this happens. Unhoused people hang out in the stairwell. It happens. So again, this is very average. It's not. And yeah. So what's another thing that I have used to cope with my stress? There's, I don't know. There's probably, I should have brought my book. There's a book I have that has a bunch of what we call spots, which is, you can spot different things that help you. They're essentially coping strategies, but we call them spots for whatever reason. And so I should have brought my book out so I could look at some spots and be like, oh, that applies to this situation, and that also applies to this situation, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah. Drop the temper. That's something we say is temper begets temper, calm begets calm. So, and temper doesn't, in our support group, doesn't just mean being angry. Temper can also mean like feeling Uh, there's like angry temper, which is being mad at other people or being upset with an outside situation. And then there's fearful temper, which is where you essentially feel upset with yourself. You feel like disgusted or humiliated, or, again, there's a lot of different stuff we say in our support group that doesn't make a ton of sense unless you're kind of in the group and know the lingo. But so I am experiencing a little bit of temper, not necessarily because I'm angry, but like I'm feeling upset with myself for being the kind of person who gets so worked up over something like this, and so I'm feeling shame, and so I have to drop that and just don't accuse myself as well, like not just don't judge and accuse other people, but yourself also. So, I'm not judging myself for responding this way to a very minor situation. I'm not accusing myself of being irrational and crazy and, like this is, it's okay. I have I have OCD. I have an anxiety disorder. Like this is an average response for me. It's okay. Um, and also there's the angry temper of being upset with these people. So again, drop that temper. Don't work myself up, because as anxious people we tend to take a small situation and then build it up in our minds and like make it into a big situation, and like that is kind of what I tend to do in situations like this. And so again, I'm trying to remind myself to calm begets calm. Remain calm. It's okay. It's a again, there's no danger in this situation. So yeah, and humor is our best friend. That's another thing we say. Temper is our enemy. Humor is our best friend. So try to essentially laugh it off. And this is kind of a funny situation. I mean, it's sad because these people are, again, unfortunate. They are, I assume, unhoused. They were having an argument, which, no, that this is an unfortunate. So I'm not laughing at them. I'm trying to find the humor in the situation. I'm not trying to find the humor at the expense of these people. I recognize that their situation is presumably worse than mine, but I can find humor in my response to the situation. I can laugh about the fact that like I'm making this dumb video, making such a big deal out of something that's really not a big deal. Like it's funny that I'm like this, just trying to smile and laugh it off. Um, any other techniques, coping techniques? I've probably been recording for almost 23 minutes at this point. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that, but I'm very thankful to this support group, because in the past, this situation would have absolutely stressed me out so much more than it is. And like, I know I seem really stressed out as it is, but like in the past, before this support group, before I learned these coping techniques, I would have absolutely been just like building this up and building it up and like making it into this whole thing. And so I'm glad that I'm able to again recognize that it's funny that I'm making this stupid video over something that really isn't a big deal. So yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. Have a